Hello YouTube, Mishka Valhalla here. Welcome again to another one of my videos. So in my last video I talked about the world tree, I talked about the 9 realms, and I got deep into what they mean to me and what they can mean to many heathens nowadays. And obviously, from what I draw from the mythology and the sagas, and archaeology of course. But obviously that's very limited, and we're doing our best nowadays to uncover things. And that very thing, one of those many things that we're trying to uncover, is music. Especially when it comes to the cultural sphere of the time, and the region. What sort of music they had during rituals, what sort of music they celebrated, because this is something that I will stress a lot in this video when I'm talking about music in the ancient world. So we're comparing it to a lot of neighboring cultures, a lot of pre-Christian pagan religions that are not Norse, not Celtic, not even Greek, but other ones that surround it. I know that the Greeks definitely had a lot of magic that they incorporated into ritual and spirituality. That's something that even Abrahamic religions do. So we still have that reminiscent of our older tendencies still existing. The way many of the ancient Greeks would explain magic, or should I say music, is as a form of magic. It's a form of ritual. You create these sounds and you do these movements, sort of like a spell, to make people feel a certain way, to invoke a deity or a spirit, chanting, music, melody. This is something very sacred and something very significant and something that needs to be studied more. People really need to brainstorm ancient Europe and a lot of these places that didn't get the privilege of writing all their history down and all the things about their culture. I'm sure you could go back, and look at a lot of these groups that were already Christianized and what they wrote about their past. And a lot of these things are very prejudiced. A lot of these things are very biased. They are very ignorant, because a lot of these things that are being written down come long after the Christianization, at least 200 years, especially with Snorri Sturluson and his writing of the Eddas, and of course his take on the sagas. But this comes from an older oral tradition, and the things that are true to the heathen past, are hidden between the lines, as well as all the falsehoods that the Christians put in. So, but what we can notice about Christians and a lot of Abrahamic traditions is they still have this old tendency of making music part of something sacred. You even see it in modern paganism and modern Christianity, using music to create a feeling. But not only that, that's what all music does, but to induce some sort of spiritual trance, or some sort of setting for a ritual, or some sort of prayer. It can be anything. So basically what I'm trying to say is that music is just as sacred as everything else to the ancient world. And you don't have to believe me, but second, I'm going to further explain why I think the way I do. So I'm going to go over ancient music, and then I'm going to go over more modern music, especially modern music that reflects the ancient past, such as modern pagan music, such as bands like Wardruna. Since we're talking about the Norse culture, those are all the bands I'm going to name: Wardruna, Danheim, Heilung. All these bands are very heathen at their core, and they promote this cultural energy per se, this impression of pre-Christian pagan Scandinavia / Northern Europe. And a lot of these things are very beautiful, the things that they create. I'll get into that in a bit. Excuse me. After I talk about modern music ancient music in the pagan world. Modern music can definitely be talked about, because right now, what's happening right now, what we're seeing, what we're listening to, a lot of us will listen to it and we'll assume it's always been that way. But the truth is, we don't know. we can speculate by grabbing all the old instruments, making a lot of sounds with them, experimenting using vocals we think were used back then. And this goes for all cultures that people are trying to uncover and reconstruct and rebuild. I'm not a hardcore reconstructionist. I'm not going to hate you or say you're absolutely wrong if you practice heathenry a certain way or believe in something a certain way. I'm not about that, because I think that alone is a flawed thing to do. I think a really smart person recognizes that they don't know everything, and recognizes when something has just as much of an equal possibility of being wrong, as they think of it being true. And that can go for me too, if that makes any sense. But back to music. So, ancient music. So I do know that the ancient Greeks, they did refer to music being much like magic, or if not exactly like magic. Same with their rituals, and you can even see this in Hindu cultures, or the Hinduism, with Bharatanatyam. My girlfriend, she does a lot of dances, a lot of cultural dances from the East, and one of them is Bharatanatyam, which is a very sacred Hindu dance that's often done in temples. So we can look to a lot of these things for inspiration, and we can even compare them to the modern music we're listening to now. And I will get into that more, the modern music. But ancient music, there's a sense of ritual with all these, ancient ways of performing music. It's almost always, like in a group or a circle. Um, all these different cultures, when they're invoking their gods, or when they're giving an offering to the gods, or when they're celebrating something, there's always music, there's always a sound that fills the area, something quite magical. And a lot of the gods in a lot of these pre-Christian religions that associate with music are very powerful magicians. And you can even see this in Norse culture when it comes to the skalds. I'm not talking about, the heavily Christianized skalds, the ones that were involved with writing down the Eddas and the sagas and everything, but, the more pre-Christian skalds that orally pass down these stories. I could be wrong, but it is my belief that a skald not only had the duty of passing down these stories and expressing them poetically and musically to the people, which does have a ritual significance, but this person was also, as a pre-Christian Scandinavian, someone who was very submerged in the culture of the mystical, magic, divination, and they could very well be associated with Galdr, which is rune magic, which I can get into. It means to chant, or to speak, or to sing, and that's exactly what music is. But with Galdr, it's magic through chanting, magic through song, magic through the voice. And you can even see something like that with Seidr. These recordings of people, these historical documents of people, dancing and drumming and singing. And this is like a lot of, if not most, indigenous or pre-Christian cultures. There's a lot of dancing, drumming, singing, chanting. Their bodies are always moving. They're in the presence of the gods, statues of the gods or something. But with Seidr, it's like, they're going on a shamanic journey, or they're doing some sort of fate work or something like that. Even now we don't know everything, about Seidr either. But we do know some things. We can speculate on some things, and a lot of the things I do say are from my own speculation and my own opinions on what I research and what I see. Let's see if we're done with ancient music. Probably not. I think it's worthy to mention the fact that I did mention it, but I'm going to further discuss it. So, music is so important and so powerful to the human culture, to humanity as a whole, that we didn't even stop using it in our rituals when we converted to Abrahamic religions, such as Islam, such as Judaism, such as Christianity, obviously. But we didn't stop a lot of things. We didn't stop a lot of pagan tendencies, like a lot of the details we have in our holidays, especially in Christianity, the Christmas tree. A lot of pagans nowadays know it's no secret that the Christians, in order to convert the pagans, or at least make them feel comfortable, because what happened was the leaders a lot of the time would convert for economic means, and then they'd be like, oh shit, all these people are still pagans, so what do I do to my subjects? I try to slowly incorporate all of the local myths with the myths of the Bible, so I can slowly change them and slowly make them how I want them to be, and slowly make the Pope, give me the thumbs up. That was roughly the idea generally. Economic means, and how am I gonna make these people believe in this shit? Excuse my language. I can't. So the idea is to not get rid of these important cultural things that exist in the pagan world, such as, like decorating the evergreens around the house, the mistletoe, the Yule log. I mean, it's even in the name, Yule log, Yuletide. I know that for a lot of modern pagans, it's a celebration of the summer solstice, but a lot of evidence is starting to prove that the Norsemen had it different, if not other groups. It was a very lunar-based calendar, and Yule would be held for 3 nights on the full moon of, I think it would be the first full moon after the solstice, the winter solstice, or the like kind of somewhere towards spring, obviously, like between winter and spring, on its way there, because it's just to wake up the land spirits, to bring back the sun, all that good stuff, better fertility, the return of fertility, animals come out of hibernation, so it's easier to hunt and stuff like that. But yeah, so they would, music didn't change. The holidays, they were kind of moved around a bit. I mean, the music too, less, like bones and tree worshiping and earth sacrifice, and more of like, staying in this big building that was built by the lords of the land, or the church, the hierarchy. You go in there, you pray, but then everybody has a choir. They have music where they sing. They give their devotion. They celebrate, and basically, it's very similar to the past. And it's, I mean, the Muslims do it too. They incorporate music into some of their ceremonies. I definitely know that the Jews do too. It even goes back to their pre-Judaic religion, of the Canaanites, the Phoenicians, and the pre-Judaic Hebrews, and who else worshiped those gods? Like Yahweh, El, Baal, Dagon. There was a third other group that I can't think of, but maybe I'll get to it. But yeah, definitely the Phoenicians and the Canaanites, and the Assyrians. If I am correct, the Assyrians also worship those gods. But basically, it didn't change. Music is still important, but when it comes to paganism, it's that different approach, the more earthy approach. This feeling of connecting to your roots more so than connecting to, this light in the sky that knows everything, and loves you regardless, even though he still does things to hurt you. But and he's all powerful. Anyway, I'll stop about that. But basically, music didn't leave. Music stayed, and it's still significant today. It's just, I mean, obviously the value was stripped away, especially with more secular music. Like music that's just made for its sound. It is a good thing. I still listen to some music just for the sound of it, but how does it make you feel? Like, does it speak to anything spiritual within you? Does it make you reflect on your family, your love life? That's what music should do. It shouldn't just be a buzzing sound in the room that just has everybody nodding their head to the beat, but I mean, I can think of some artists, but I'm not going to be judgmental, and I'm not going to call anyone out. But yes, so here we go on to modern pagan music. So there's been this revival, this awakening, and of course, many of us know Wardruna, and they are from Norway, their lead singer being Einar Selvik, and one of their other singers being Lindy Fayhella. I've met both of them. And the rest of the band. I've mentioned it in one of my previous videos, the one I talk about altars. My next video will be about sacred places in general, so definitely look forward to that. But yes, back to music. So then, of course, you have Danheim, which has a different feel. It came on a bit later. It's kind of less rustic than Wardruna. Wardruna is very more on the rustic side of things, like the country dwellers, like very, humble, spiritual. It focuses heavily on the runes. They have all these different instruments that many of these people in this genre are using. The Norse genre, the tagelharpa, the buckhorn, which is this goat horn type instrument, the lyre, more particularly the kravik lyre. That's the one Einar Selvik uses, and a number of other heathen bands. But the music they create is absolutely beautiful. The atmosphere, this naturey atmosphere, this aura of home, it's just so familiar to me. And that's why I want to make a video about this, because I genuinely feel very connected to this music. And it does bring me back, in a way. As a heathen, many of us believe, that we are linked to our ancestors, not by blood, but also not just by blood, but also by spirit. So, feeling connected to my heritage, feeling connected to, the heathen past of my ancestors, I support this music heavily. And a lot of these artists are actually genuine heathens themselves. It's not like they're just putting it out there just to entertain. They're putting it out there because it means something for them too. And it means something for the gods, it means something for the spirits and the ancestors. So, that's what's mostly important. Especially for a heathen perspective, someone trying to create this ritualistic type music, for heathens alike, or just to express oneself, to put out there your own understanding, your own feel of heathenry and what it means to you. And what I do experience in a lot of this modern heathen music, is that deep feeling of home, reconnecting to my past, my ancestors. And I can even use some of this music in ritual music, like Danheim, Wardruna, and Heilung. Those are the three big ones I'll mention a lot in this video. I'll move on to Danheim. Danheim is much more modernized, I guess you could say. It's got a quicker beat, I'm sure such things could have been accomplished back then, but it's more focused on I don't know, like more on it's like focused more on a sensational aspect, like a sensational spiritual aspect of heathenry, less so than a more rustic, I don't know, like a more naturally humble type feel that Wardruna has. But I could just be throwing words around and barely explaining this to you, but that's just how I feel about it. But Danheim does have that spiritual grab for me, because when I listen to it, I feel like a modern Viking. That's kind of what Danheim's goal kind of is. I don't know the guy himself, and I haven't spoken to him, but I absolutely love his music. And if you're watching, if I'm that lucky, then thank you for all your music. You are great. Same with you, Wardruna, if you're watching too. I've met you once, but maybe you're watching again, being like, hey, it's that guy that said he was so inspired by our music. Hey again. You did inspire me. Thanks. But yeah, so Danheim, it's a great band too. A lot of good tracks there. I can leave links in the description for these 3 different bands, as well as the 3 different YouTube channels I definitely recommend for heathenry overall. So yeah, Danheim, a good way to get introduced to Norse music. I used to always introduce people with Wardruna, and that was a way for them to kind of get the feel of, like what a heathen vibe would be, something very ritualistic, something very old, earth-based, something with meaning, language. And yeah, language, another thing that's very important in heathenry and mythology in general, is language. And what they do beautifully in these songs is they try to learn the language and they speak the words, they utter the runes, and that's exactly what Wardruna represent. They represent the runes. A lot of their music, if not all their music or most of their music, is focused on the runes. Fehu, Urus, Tours. They name all of their songs, most of their songs actually, after the runes. And a lot of those songs have the feel and the vibe of what this rune could possibly mean. And there are universal meanings to these runes, I do believe. I will make separate videos on the runes, but what I do know about the runes is that in nature, they are powerful. They are gods within their own right, in my opinion. They are spirits. They are beings with their own conscious thoughts and opinions. But they are very ancient. It was said that when Odin hung from the tree of life and discovered the runes, he discovered them. He didn't create them. And that these runes are ancient, coming from the roots themselves. That's something very powerful and significant. But the idea is that it's an ancient language that connects when we're talking about spirituality and not history, because I know that the Elder Futhark runes, which are the ones that I rune, or the ones that I use, are not the oldest set of runes, but they're the oldest Futhark we can find, I guess you could say. For the Germanic people, and they used these runes, and over time different types of runic alphabets developed, like Younger Futhark, Anglo-Saxon Futhark, etc. But the runes, they tap into a very musical, primal, spiritual side of things, and when I learn about the runes, when I cast the runes, it's very much a language of fate, a way of understanding the web of weird and navigating your life in a way that, is much easier. But, the runes aren't for everyone. I mean, I know people that would definitely prefer tarot cards. I totally understand, but runes are my thing. And as a heathen, I definitely feel more empowered using them. But that's your own journey. But yes. So yeah, more on the subject of modern music. We have Danheim, the more, upbeat party aspect of Norse music. It's very city oriented. Like it kind of reminds me of what people in a Norse city would look like, or like the type of music they would listen to. You got the country dwellers that listen to like Heilung. I'll mention Heilung more in a bit, but Heilung and Wardruna, in the woods, like just zoning out and connecting to the earth. But when it comes to Danheim, it kind of reminds me of that sacred spiritual feeling, but more like crazy, like more ferocious, like fast-paced dancing, like party-type dancing, something more in a great hall type of deal, which would be pretty badass. Like listening to Danheim in a modern great hall, that'd be badass. But yeah, Danheim, thank you. Wardruna, thank you. And Heilung, can't thank you enough either. What they did was they brought it to a whole new level with stage costumes and designs and shit. Excuse my language. But yeah, like a Heilung, they wear the antlers, the furs, they get up in these shamanic, these Nordic outfits, these tunics, they carry shields and swords and spears, and it's just like, this is genius. If this isn't gonna get music lovers into heathenry, what will? If this isn't the one, then what is? I love the other two bands, but what they did was pretty new. They wanted to bring us back in time, not only through our ears, but through our eyes as well. And that just really goes deep for me. The idea that they were willing to capture something that calls to like so many heathens and makes so much sense to them, and just to be overall so significant in their lives. Like going to a lot of these rituals, it feels like a ritual. My bad. You see, I'm already ahead of myself. A lot of these concerts feel like rituals. In a way, they are. Even Heilung admits the fact that when they do their shows, it's not just a show. In fact, sometimes it's not a show. It's a ritual. But everybody enjoys the ritual. Everybody is a part of the ritual. All the spirits are welcomed to the ritual. At the beginning of their show, they smoke up the sage or the mugwort or whatever they're using to cleanse the space. They're calling in the spirits. They're doing this genuine, and that's something that's hard to see on stage, anywhere. But since this is a group that's trying to awaken an actual culture, trying to rebuild a spirituality that's so in depth and so significant to our heritage, something so old and almost lost to our memory. Most people, like, you can say the word Viking and people will know what a Viking is, but they won't know who they were. They'll know what a Viking is, but they won't know where they're from. Like maybe they'll say Greenland or Iceland or something, but like they really don't know. And it's even worse when you say Norse or Nordic. Then they're like, are you talking about Skyrim? It's just, anyway, I don't know why I went off about that, but that's why I make these videos, to help, the heathen community be more, understandable, kind of a way to put my own thoughts out there so people are less confused. And so it makes people more, easy to join, makes it easier for people to start their path on heathenry or just understand their heathen friends, because like I said, it's not a path for everybody, and it doesn't need to be a path for everybody. And I don't want it to be a path for everybody, because if heathenry was the only religion in the world, it'd be boring as hell. There'd be no other cultures, no other gods to, learn about and, maybe even reach out to, or, people that follow these gods and live different lives. It's just interesting as hell, Odin himself is known to be a god of foreigners who constantly wandered about. Why shouldn't we? The Vikings did it, the Norsemen did it, conquering new lands and settling different places. But yeah, Heilung. Heilung is great. I'd love to see them in person. I saw Wardruna in person, but that definitely felt like a ritual. That felt beautiful. It felt like I was connecting to the spirits, to the gods, and even to the performers, Einar and Hela or Lindy, and all the other members of the band, just it was breathtaking. And Ivor was there too, the Faroese vocalist who did the music for The Last Kingdom. I met her too. She was really wonderful. I'll also put a link in the description for her channel, because I have a great deep respect for her. She makes very beautiful music. And if you haven't heard her music but are interested in seeing a very good show, definitely watch The Last Kingdom. Not very historically accurate, but more accurate than Vikings in my opinion. But yeah, please enjoy, or just look at her music. But yeah, I'll talk about her. I'll talk about her. Yeah, she basically she uses her drum a lot. This skin drum, this shamanic drum, and this is something that's very interesting. Throughout the world, is every ancient culture has had some sort of drum. It's one of the most primitive instruments known to man. And the Norse people, especially being in contact with the Sami, more northern indigenous peoples of the far north of Scandinavia. Excuse me. They could have very well either, the Norse people and the Sami could have very well both been using drums and practicing forms of shamanism and music with these types of drums, or the Norse could have learned from the Sami. So I know the Sami, have been there much longer than the Norse. But basically, yeah, it's a lot of interesting parallels going around to that drum. I have a drum of my own. I'll show you here in a second. The only Nordic-like or pre-Christian instrument I have. But yeah, I do have a jaw harp. I know jaw harps very well could have been used, but this is my drum I use in ritual and when I'm doing rune readings. Let's see what good of a sound it can have right now. Not bad. Someone is sleeping. But yes. So, that's pretty much it about modern pagan music and old pagan music revolving around heathenism. But yeah, with Ivor, I'll also mention, she I don't really know if she's heathen or not. Obviously I didn't ask, but I saw her once. I was starstruck. I couldn't even ask all the questions I wanted to ask to Einar and Lindy, and I actually sat down with Lindy for a good amount of time with my girlfriend, but I didn't ask all the questions I wanted to ask. But yeah, her music kind of has a very heathen feel, Ivor, and I definitely recommend you check her out. Yes, so that's pretty much it for real now. So thank you. Thank you all for watching. Please like and subscribe. Again, any recommendations for future videos, please let me know. And what else? Oh yeah, I'll leave some other heathen channels in the description, and I'll also leave the music in the description. All right, thank you. Hail, and have a nice day or evening. Bye bye.